Hello, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are coming in from. Welcome. We are super excited to have you all here today. This is the first Visionary Frameworks workshop in a multi-session series. Our first one is with Arturo Masal of Casa Pueblo, which we're super excited about. I'm Victoria Benson, and I am both honored and excited to be collaborating with the Community Power and Policy Partnerships team at Othering and Belonging Institute on the Radical Imagination for Racial Justice project, which is resourced by CERDNA. I know that was a mouthful, and we're going to give a little bit more of the background of the project before we jump into the juicy and inspiring content that Arturo will be sharing with us. So over the past year, the Community Power and Policy Partnerships Program at the Othering and Belonging Institute, aka OBI, has been working with artists and participatory action research projects that advance racial justice. This is a part of a national initiative called the Radical Imagination for Racial Justice, which involves dozens of artists and organizations around the country working with arts to advance racial justice. This series is something that emerged out of that work in an effort to shine a light on some of the amazing examples of how collective knowledge generation, arts, and cultural strategy can make visionary frameworks real and tangible. We welcome organizers, researchers, artists, and allies to join us for this workshop, but the others that we will be having in the future. So as of now, we've got 3, including this one, and our next 2 will be on justice, disability, and abolition. And each workshop will be led by an amazing practitioner like Arturo, who has really steeped themselves in advancing visionary frameworks through participatory action research and participatory democracy and cultural strategies. Today, we are honored and excited to kick this series off with you, Arturos, who is hailing from Adjuntos, Puerto Rico, and is from Casa Pueblo. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And before we dive into the content, let's do a little bit of housekeeping and grounding, and then we'll jump into our presenters' story and share, as well as do a little bit of interactive work together in the second part. So for housekeeping, we have Spanish interpretation with Armando Ortiz. Thank you so much, Armando. If you want to participate in Spanish, you'll see at the bottom of the Zoom bar, it's got a little world icon and says interpretation. So you click on that and then you select the language, and Spanish is an option. We also are going to have this live transcript enabled, so you'll see closed captions. If you don't, for some reason, see those and you need those to be on or off, you can go ahead and click the more at the bottom on the 3 dots, and then it'll give you an option to look at this transcript and the subtitles. All right, so also, that was a quick rundown of our housekeeping because we want to hold as much space as possible for the spotlight to be on Arturo. But if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. I am fortunate and honored to have a team of folks supporting, and they will respond to any questions or needs you may have. All right, so what we want to do before diving in is do a moment to acknowledge this land that we are on. So I'm gonna take a breath. And I'm going to do a land acknowledgement. And while I am doing that, if you are not, familiar with the land, the native land that you are on, there is a link that Evan will be dropping into the chat, so you can look up the place where you stay and learn more about the territories, the unceded territories that you are on. And with that, I will begin our land acknowledgement. This work happens on the unceded land of Ohlone people, both in what is called Oakland and Berkeley. If you'd like to name the place that you're calling from, please do. You can put that in the chat. If you are learning the name of the land we're on, go ahead and check out that link that Evan dropped in. And I just want to share that I engage in this land acknowledgement both to acknowledge the land and the people who are its original and current caretakers and stewards. The land acknowledgement is a step towards truth, that the land is unceded, meaning that it was taken rather than given, and that the grave harms that have been enacted on Native people by means of taking and stealing. This is a single step in a journey of repair, not to its end. There is much more work to be done. Repair includes self-educating, learning about how you can support the work of local Native people and initiatives in your community, and or on the national campaigns that Native folks work on, like the Land Back by the NDN Collective. These efforts teach about and make progress towards the rematriation of everything that was taken, including land, language, ceremony, food, education, housing and shelter, healthcare, governance, medicine, and kinship. That being said, I just like to invite folks to take a few deep breaths. Notice where, where their body is touching the ground and the earth, and the stewards of the land that you are on. And I am in Oakland, which is Ohlone Chochenyo territory. All right, with that acknowledgement, which we know is a small bit of the larger work and transformation that needs to be done, I would like to transition us into a warm-up poll. So in order to do that, I'm not sure if you've participated in a poll before, given it's been over 2 years of the pandemic, you probably have. So what we'll do is we'll have Evan share this poll, and we'll give you a few minutes or so to answer the questions. It's just 3 simple questions, or seemingly simple. I have experienced participatory democracy. Yes or no question. Apologies for my dog barking. I know where most of the energy I consume comes from. And in an emergency power outage, I know how to get in touch with my loved ones. So I'm gonna just let folks fill this out for a second and mute myself while my dog takes a moment. Okay, so we have, interesting. So we have currently like 55% of folks say yes to the experience of participatory democracy, which is wonderful. 43% have not. We've also got a little bit of like a 50-50 split on the next question. I know where most of the energy I consume comes from. And then the last question, we have also about 50-50. Actually, wait, let me see. Yeah. So now hopefully you can see the poll. Yeah, I think Evan shared it. So interesting. So really this was just to get folks thinking about where their essential resource of energy comes from and what happens when that resource is cut off. And if you were someone who answered yes, that's dope. So glad you're here, and you're going to be learning more about what that looks like and how to do that and be more in relationship with that resource through Arturo's presentation. And if you said no, do not feel bad. You are not alone. That's also why we are all here, so that we can really learn how do we get in connection and with energy and remember how essential it is, and that really it should be accessible to everyone, and we should all have deep knowledge of where it comes from. And also control of how we get it and who controls it. So thank you everyone for participating. And I will now, what I'm gonna do, if it's okay with you, Arturo, is I would like to introduce you, share a little bit about your background, and then tell folks a bit about what you're gonna be talking about today. So without further ado, Arturo A. Masolo-Deya is from the mountainous area of Puerto Rico in the municipality of Adjuntos, where his parents Alexis and Tinti founded the community organization Casa Pueblo in 1980. Masolo-Deya grew up in this process and has chaired its board of directors since 2007. This community self-determination project was responsible for protecting the Central Zone and its critical hydrographic basins from open pit mining and later from a gigantic gas pipeline. Instead, the community's initiative led to new community managed forestry units, Bosque del Pueblo and Bosque La Olimpia. And this really changed the island's forestry policy and catalyzed a doubling of protected areas in Puerto Rico from just 3.7 to the current 8% of its surface, which is incredible. Since more than 90% of the land is at high ecological value and are in private hands, conservation initiatives are management initiatives with people, the forest with people. Arturo graduated from the public school system in 1986 and from the University of Puerto Rico in 1990. He obtained his doctoral degree from the Center of Microbial Ecology of Michigan State University in 1994. Shoo, look at you. Since then, he has been part of the faculty of the biology department of the University of Puerto Rico. I was practicing this, Mayagüez campus, where he established the Tropical Microbial Ecology Lab. There, he has been a mentor to numerous students and the principal investigator of projects on microbial ecology with emphasis on biological processes aimed at restoring contaminated environments. He works on biodiversity projects, molecular microbial ecology, hydrocarbon biodegradation, heavy metal bioremediation, and phytoremediation. Did I say that last one?
Yes.
After the Hurricane Maria passed through Puerto Rico, Dr. Masol Deya, together with Casa Pueblo, led a community aid response that has aimed at to change the energy landscape from a country dependent on fossil fuels to one of energy independence with indigenous, clean, and renewable sources. Woo, 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 woo! Yes, I see folks clapping because well done. And I know you got many more years to do wonderful things with your community. So that being said, let's hear a little bit about what you have been doing. We'll hear Arturo talk about how they've built community self-determination over an essential resource, power, as well as how they've done that by operating at the intersection of science, culture, and community. That's a core formula of their work, as well as using participatory research and democracy and life-affirming practices and art. Without further ado, I'm gonna pass it over to you, Arturo. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm glad that Armando is here, so I'm planning to switch to Spanish very soon. but no, I'm gonna try to do my best. English is not my first language, so in Puerto Rico we speak Spanish. This is Casa Pueblo, a community-based organization located in the central part of Puerto Rico. It's a coffee production area. We are located in the Caribbean, a corridor of hurricanes and one of the regions on this planet that is paying a higher price for climate change. Puerto Rico is politically a US territory. We are not part of the US, but we belong as a property to the US. So if you think about direct colonial territories, Puerto Rico perhaps is one of the oldest in this planet. And again, we became a US territory in 1898 when the US Navy came through Guanica and invaded, militarily speaking, the island and took the island away from the Spanish. So before that, we were a colonial territory of Spain. It's very hard, I mean, to explain the political reality of Puerto Rico, but this is sort of the context. And within that context, everything we do has to be done to confront that model of dependency, of a colonial dependency. And Casa Pueblo is self-financed. We grow coffee, we sell coffee as the way to generate our own income, to dictate with our own voice, our own agenda, our own community agenda. So for self-determination, you need your own economy. We have a radio station, Radio Casa Pueblo, we have a solar cinema, we have a school of music, that's Luis Fonsi visiting Despacito, our School of Music. We have a choir, we have multiple educational programs for the community, but we got organized in 1980 basically to confront an unsustainable proposal and open street mining, large scale in the central part of the island. And when we learned about that model of development, that extraction strategy, we quickly realized how incompatible was doing that with protecting the land, the watershed, biodiversity, coffee production, community, and so on. So we decided to oppose, and we went with all the science and knowledge all around the different neighborhoods in Adjuntas, and we organized our first protest a year after. And only one person showed up. Only one person show up to the main square, and that guy that you see there is actually a member of our group that got there late. There's a lot of police people around the main square, a lot of political repression during the Cold War. Anyone opposing government initiative and economical models was portrayed as a terrorist and a communist and many labels. But the reality was that using knowledge itself, you know, like you can have all the knowledge, and we have a lot of knowledge about climate change and about a lot of issues that need to be resolved in our society. But the knowledge itself is not enough to transform that reality. So at that point, we realized that engaging culture and community plus science as a mean to get knowledge became our equation for engagement and to promote social transformation. So this is the same main square, but now we, through the arts that gave us identity and mean to communicate, instead of having the scientific knowledge being transferred to the community, now we're singing, now we're showing movies, we're dancing, we're engaging and value. We're giving a value to nature and then realize the threats that mining was imposing up, the mining proposal was imposing up on our community. It's more participatory, it's more clear. And by doing that, this is what we have been doing in everything we do in Casa Pueblo. This is the same main square 15 years after, celebrating that the mining was defeated by a change in public policy. So although Casa Pueblo doesn't work with politicians, we're not seeking political power. What we're promoting is social engagement and social power. We cannot dismiss political solutions. So we have been promoting policy changes in Puerto Rico to oppose to the mining, for forest management, and now for a transition to clean energy sources. We had to engage again in another protest in this unsustainable present. The government wanted to do an open street mining. We decided to stop that from happening. At that time, we used science, culture, and community. And instead of having one person showing up in Adjuntas, we had 30,000 people. We had to do civil disobedience and at Washington, D.C. for different reasons. But we were able to stop that negative, that corrupted proposal in 3 years, preventing Puerto Rico to become gasified and opening the door to a clean energy future. So stopping unsustainable proposals is very critical in order to move to an alternative future. So from protesting, which is important in some instances, we want to engage our energy in proposing alternative and assuming responsibilities. We propose a forest instead of mining, and we told the government that we wanted to do the management. So we use science, culture, and community. We achieved Bosque del Pueblo. Later on, we achieved Bosque La Olimpia, and we built a school in that forest, and we're driving lessons from the forest, that ideas that can be integrated at the community for our own development. And then I want to jump to 2017 when Hurricane Maria went through Puerto Rico. I don't have to talk to you about climate change and the consequences in the Caribbean. They're well known, but this is a really tough day for Puerto Rico. We had a power outage. So this is a summary of PREPA, the Power Authority behavior. We had a complete blackout, not just for one day, 1 week, it was month. And for some people in our community, up to a year or more than a year without power from the central utility. But it doesn't have, you don't need a hurricane. You can have earthquakes in Puerto Rico, like in 2020, and we confronted another power outage. Now the central utilities, the central power plants, they were disconnected because of the shaking of the earth. And then the PREPA was privatized. And the day that PREPA, the transmission and distribution line, was privatized, they had an explosion at the main transmission center. And we had another power outage that lasted a few days. And just recently, like a few weeks ago, there was a fire in one of the breakers, at a transmission line nearby the power station. And even though that was a local incident, all of the power plants got disconnected and the whole island was again in another power outage. So what we have been doing with Othering and Belonging Institute with Ally is a participatory research project to study longitudinal energy insecurity realities in our community. And this is another conversation, but we want to measure, to track that and gather knowledge that can be used to promote alternative and new policy that creates, the right of energy for everyone. But let me go back to the hurricane. Yeah, let's go back to the hurricane, but into the community context. Casa Pueblo has been producing power at the point of consumption since 1999. We're generating energy at the point of consumption. And so we don't rely on the central power plants. We don't rely upon the transmission and distribution lines. We are generating power at where it is being used. So this is changing the power relationship. Keep in mind that energy is the capacity to do work. The capacity for Casa Pueblo to do work, energy-wise, is being promoted by clean energy sources that are democratizing energy production in our community. We're confronting the fossil fuel economy, which is unidirectional, bad for the environment, bad for the health of the people, and economically unfair for many. So we went the day after the hurricane, we became an energy oasis, and we started to distribute solar lamps to help people, but also to teach them about solar power. And we went from solar lamps, 14,000 units were distributed in our community to do Cucubanos houses like Casa Pueblo, especially for medical reasons. So since 2017 to up to date, we have done over 100 homes are now energy independent, like Casa Pueblo. We have done for economic activation, the barber shop is now running on solar power. We have been thinking in food security, so grocery stores in rural communities, critical infrastructure like the fire station, communication infrastructure, the transmission tower of Radio Casa Pueblo, the elderly home, the elementary school, and many, many others, including La Lechonera, Chinchorro, and many other places in our community, including a solar cinema that we now have to address mental health, education, and entertainment. We have done our own movies, like Nuestra Insurrección Energética, to educate people. And for the first anniversary of the solar cinema, we show Free Solo with Alex Honnold, that I think he went to Berkeley, UC Berkeley. He never finished, but he's from California, I think. But it was not such a good experience because that day Alex Honnold was sitting in the middle of the solar cinema, so we knew that he wasn't going to fall out of that Yosemite Capitan. So it was an end spoiler. But the reason that Alex was in Adjuntas was actually to go with the community, and instead of opposing to the mining or to the natural gas pipeline, this was a Marcha del Sol, the march to promote an alternative future. And that day, on Earth Day 2019, we proposed Adjuntas Solar, Pueblo Solar, so to go after the place with the highest energy demand, most jobs are created, and to build not just a solar lamp or a house. Now we're talking about a huge microgrid. This is our capstone, let's say, project for Adjuntas, and a new reference of energy independence that you don't see. It's not, there's no place like this in Puerto Rico. And this is the main square from above. You can see that a lot of solar panels has been installed. Since Earth Day 2021, energy had been generated at the point of consumption. Soon, we're going to be installing a 1 megawatt energy storage unit to complete the microgrid and build energy resilience. So this is Adjuntas from above, downtown. Most of our projects are actually in rural areas, many independent installation. There's a new company in Adjuntas that has created 5 jobs. We have 3 out of 6 installers were females. We have a new basketball team that the name is Los Soles de Adjuntas, so they identify with the energy freedom proposal, and they had the first female coach in the history of that league. So there's a lot of things happening that are related to community development, that related to energy. It's not just about solar panels. It's about local development for an alternative Adjuntas. And this is a land that was given to Casa Pueblo that have been transformed into a Bosque Solar. These are art pieces of sculptures that has solar panels. So this is to bring the forest into the urban setting. And that power has created like an energy oasis for the community. There's a lot of artists participating in transforming that space, and that energy is also powers critical loads of 5 nearby houses. So it is a functional piece of art that we just inaugurated a few days ago, El Bosque Solar, our energy oasis. People said that a clean energy future is expensive, but expensive is to run this fossil fuel economy. In Puerto Rico, we paid $22,000 million in the first 10 years of this millennium just to pay for the fuels. So we're working. Energy has the capacity to do work. Work for what? Work to pay for the fuels, to power the island and the productive activities. A huge contradiction. So we need to democratize energy generation. We need to produce energy generation at the point of consumption, and we're fighting for energy independence. Energy independence will create Puerto Rico will be in a better position to self-determine, like we are doing at the Casa Pueblo level, like we are promoting at the community level. Energy independence means reduction of our ecological footprint, but it will set Puerto Rico in a better position to make a decision of our own destiny, political destiny. We are a colonial territory. We have been told that Puerto Rico is a small island in the Caribbean that lacks natural resources like oil, natural gas, or coal. And the question is, who needs all of that when we have plenty of sun, we have plenty of wind, we have biomass, we have water, we have plenty of clean energy sources that can power the island and promote self-determination. So this is my last slide to address some issues that we talked before during the planning of this event. Someone told us about resilience, and we think resilience is not individual strength, it's community strength. And in order to make communities stronger, we have to empower the community, not to empower the politicians, where people relied and where people delegate their responsibility. The politicians, they have to do their part. If you want to build community resilience, you have to empower the community itself. It's social empowerment. It's about education. It's about breaking dependency. It's with higher community morale that you don't see with the political structure, that their rules of engagements are not the same. It's about building networks like we're doing with OBI and others. It's about solidarity and a reliable communication setup. It's about participation and ownership. This is what we have been promoting in Adjuntas. And if you want to make resilience weaker, well, you have a lot of private and public corrupted institutions in Puerto Rico. We have to break that political dominance of politicians dictating what communities, the solutions for communities, and so on. So with this, I want to stop and let the next, I think I have taken 19 minutes.
You did
so
perfect.
Yeah, okay.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you, Arturo. So now we are going to give you all some time to kind of mull through and think through some of the pieces that Arturo shared, the principles and methods. And we'll be doing that using a Jamboard. So trying to make it as interactive as we can, even though we are coming from all over. At the same time, translocal power building and solidarity is really important towards building local ownership as we learn from each other. So what we'll do for like the next 10 minutes, yeah, I think we could do this in 10 minutes, is we will use a Jamboard that I believe Evan has placed the link in the chat. And basically you'll have a bunch of different boards with some of the key principles and methods that Casa Pueblo and Arturo use in their work. For example, like sort of the bread and butter, the science, culture, and community, and how that really leads to more than an additive, like a multiplicative result. And so when you look at these, you're going to answer the question, actually go back to the first one real quick, Evan. How might you apply the principle or method above to your work, or share a question on how to apply it to your work? So that's the question you're answering. We can put that in the chat as well. And you'll be doing that with breaking the model of dependencies. So what does that mean, right? To build into community ownership. What does it mean to navigate and be in relationship with each other while acknowledging the political structure that controls pieces? And a few other options that I'll just let Evan, you'll be able to see them, right? But what does it mean to be comfortable, doing a lot of learning, but also prototyping and taking action and being okay with mistakes? And then on the very last slide, board, there's also just questions, because we also acknowledge that you might just have questions for Arturo. So I think if we can, we'll play a little bit of music and let folks maybe take 5 minutes to, if it's easy for you to just pick one and kind of think about what's a question or how could I apply this to my work. Or you can bounce around and comment on a lot of them. And one way I recommend doing that is using the sticky note. So that's on the left-hand side. If you go down towards the bottom, there's a little square, click on the sticky note, and that's the easiest way to add your comment or question. And with that, I will let folks kind of do some thinking, and then Arturo and I will look at that and kind of have some discussions. And there'll also be an opportunity for folks, if you want to expand on your question, we can also do a bit of that too. All right, also put questions in the chat, and I will see if we can play some music too. Yes, we can make the Jamboard public so that folks can access it. It looks like folks are having a hard time. Thank you, Sagari. All right, so if you refresh your page, you should be able to access that Jamboard. But message in the chat if you have more issues. All right, we will be coming back in a few minutes or a few seconds. Maybe take like 30 seconds to finish your thought. And well, yeah, thanks, Evan. All right. Thank you for everyone who took some time to put in your questions. If you have added in a question and your sticky note isn't a little bit enlarged, please enlarge it for us so that we can easily see it. And what I would love to do, Arturo, is sort of go through and look at these and hear your reactions, thoughts about them. And also if you have, or if we have, want to know more about the question or the comment, we can ask folks to unmute themselves. And I think it might be helpful for us to share. Perfect. Thank you, Evan. All right. Okay. So we see some folks. So we've got, starting from the left, how do you nurture people and culture to embrace self-determination and move towards energy and independence? How do you gain support from others to achieve community goals? How is Arturo's outreach and education process with the community, and what is that engagement like? How can philanthropy support the scale of clean energy in Puerto Rico in a way that's respectful of the community-centered approach? For communities that do not already have strong internal relationships and less engaged on climate science, would you start with community and culture pieces first? How can you mitigate gaps between science and traditional practices, beliefs to achieve cultural transformation perspectives? Ooh, that's a juicy one too. How can we share the science in a way that empowers participants, integrate science and culture into art, and invite the community to provide feedback on, interact, and engage, impact it? This might be especially powerful in coordinating with a larger campaign like greening energy. Elevating and acknowledging lived experiences and local knowledge is as real and rigorous scientific knowledge. Shay, to that. Let's just stick on this page. Is there one of these that I just left it up that is speaking to you in particular, Arturo, that you want to speak to?
Well, I want to say that our definition of science is about knowledge and includes traditional knowledge and people's belief, and so it's part of that equation. It's not just the hard science, although I'm a scientist but not Casa Pueblo. We use science as a way to get knowledge in order to help us make decisions, but the decisions has to be culturally sensitive. And in order to build communities, we're not educating scientists. I have to say that we have been, if philanthropy that wants to help the community, we have been getting help from many in the US. At last, after the Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico was not an international location. It was not a domestic either. So we were in a no sea zone or something. And if they want to help, they should do like Oxfam America and a Whole North Foundation and others have been doing, which is supporting Casa Pueblo to fuel our energy insurrection, as we call it, without expecting any acknowledgement. If they want to fuel Casa Pueblo, they and communities, what they have to do is help with resources and let them do their part. We have, in the case of Casa Pueblo, the best way to get support and recognition and credibility and acceptance is through service, is by actions. It's not, we are not about ideas. What we think should be done, we are actually doing it. And that's how you build a reputation and you get people get engaged, because as you are moving forward, you need other people to be part of that, to assume the responsibilities. Like when we started managing the forest, we knew nothing about forest at that point. So we learned and we had other people getting engaged and participating. The same thing with energy. I'm the biologist. We had electrical engineers and other getting engaged and helping us to learn about the technology. And we have been adapting throughout the process. And when you think about people receptions to clean energy sources after Hurricane Maria, it's because they saw in practical terms how Casa Pueblo was able to be energy secure and capable of helping the community. So it's through actions. I think even if we make mistakes, we're not afraid of making mistakes and so on.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
On that? So part of the pieces as you're getting learning, right? A lot of it is learning and then doing, making mistakes, doing, showing that you all mean it when you say we're going to do this thing by actually creating change in your community. And one question, as you spoke to like the multiple sources of knowledge that are needed in terms of the sort of like traditional ideas of knowledge, and I don't even think that's like the right, it's not even traditional, it's like mainstream Western idea of knowledge, is like, as you work with electrical engineers, as you work with folks in forestry or ideally indigenous folks who are already, stewarding that land, how do you suss out like that translation? So if you're bringing in a typical person who's trained in doing something related to, solar power, they may not have this participatory democracy lens or this decolonization lens. So just curious, and going back with philanthropy and that question about how do you address those gaps? What are the ways that you suss out, the information you're learning, and then there's some unlearning that might need to happen too, because it probably has embedded white supremacist, like colonist approaches on some of it. Is there anything that comes to mind with those issues?
It's not easy. We're consulting all the time, but we have to make decisions at the same time, and we have to choose. And but one good example is that Bosque Solar, that new project that has the electrical and the technical expertise, and you have the architects designing the trees, and you had people coming in and making the murals, and the artist putting roots. Actually, those poles, they have roots. I haven't showed them, but those were the artists to make them look more like trees and the forest. And then you had someone working on the bottom part, and all of them had different ideas. We have to be tolerant at the same time, and we do recognize that there's more than one solution for the same problem. So we're letting people, I mean, if we want participatory process, it's not going to be the way I think should be done fully. It's not easy because you will get people with really unique ideas that perhaps are fine, but is they're not culturally
relevant, grounded.
Well, that they blend into our cultural landscape. They could be very revolutionary, but we're not thinking about Casa Pueblo. We're thinking about the community that we want to transform, that is very conservative. And we're talking to people who are beyond different political parties. We don't want political traditional parties being identified on anything that we do in order to create like a common ground. So I don't know. It seems like we have, I don't know, the exact recipe for that. I think we sort of have a working relationship consulting, and it works. I don't know how to describe that. I think the action actually tells the way we're moving forward.
Right. And of course, there's no perfect recipe for any place, because it's specific to that hyperlocal context, and also changes depending on what's happening in that context. So that makes sense. Yeah. I think we have time. Go ahead. Yeah.
The other thing is we are in the middle of multiple controversies. So we're in conflict, like with the pipeline, the mining. We have been arrested. We get political repression. The police, they don't like us too much, and so when you have a community project that has a political issue there, you know, of confrontation, that you have to be careful as well. You want to be open and participatory, but you have to self-protect what you want to accomplish. So it's good to be public and the transparency and so on, but that's for the government. The government has to be transparent. For communities, we have to be strategic. We have to be careful, and we want participation, but we don't want to open participation for someone from the government infiltrated like we had in the past, getting into the community group to make disruption and to learn and to try to make harm of the community objective. So we have gone through all of that in the past.
Wow. Okay. So what I'm hearing is there's going to have to be another workshop on how you protect community work so it doesn't get infiltrated. That's okay. Just kidding. That's a joke, unless you want to, and OBI wants to. Because that's really, I think there's so much political disarray in Turtle Island and clearly in Puerto Rico and wherever folks are coming in. So I think that's like a key issue too. But bringing it back to what we're talking about today, I just think we have time for maybe like one more comment, reflection on another Jamboard. Thank you, Evan. So I'll just give you a second to maybe let's go to the, check out that page. I can't read, it's too small for me. Okay, it's okay, I got it on mine. So on here, this one about we're not seeking political power, building social engagement and power, we've got when does social power become political power? How do we hold the relationships we've developed from below when we are tasked with governing? Even within social power, how do you navigate hierarchy? Good question, all of these. I would love to hear your insights from the question here. Thanks for your question. I think that is maybe it's linked with that one. Yeah. And then, so we've got two of an interest on that first question I read. What are the dynamics to this culture? How organizations in the USA can interact and follow your lead? Developing local power eventually becomes political power over time. When does this occur, and how does it change engagement? Which I think is very connected to that first question as well. So maybe we speak to that one. How do you feel about talking about the social power and how and when it becomes political power and in relationship with political power?
You have to understand that we're dealing in a context of a colonial territory. There's no democracy. We might have elected officials, but the power doesn't reside in Puerto Rico. It's in the U.S. Congress. It is the Supreme Court of the U.S., not whatever we think are the local laws. A controlled fiscal board had been imposed upon Puerto Rico. So if you think about that context, we don't have the political power because it doesn't reside in Puerto Rico. We don't have the economical power. We don't have the military power, but we have culture and a strong society. And this is sort of when I'm saying social power, is something that we are better than the US, that we are better than the Wall Street, that we're better than the politicians of the US Congress, is if we can build a social engagement. In that context is that when I'm saying community power, which is political, of course is political, and we're seeking political solutions as well. But who are we going to be feeding? Are we going to be feeding the politicians, the Wall Street people, the US Navy, or US Army? Or are we going to use our knowledge, resources, limited resources, and our thoughts to promote resistance and self-decolonization? So if you want to promote self-decolonization, decolonization of Puerto Rico is not coming from a political solution. It's something that have to be practiced, and that at the community context. And this is sort of what we have been trying to push forward. It's kind of different if you're a free country or if you're in the US. I don't know how you see political participation. But into the Puerto Rican context. And I think it also applies in the US, and there's many countries, independent countries, that are more colonial than Puerto Rico in their behavior or their responses. What else, Victoria?
I think that was great. I think what you're lifting up is the different types of political and what it looks like to navigate that depending on the degree of colonization and the degree of independence, quote unquote, right? Whatever container that's in, so as a territory, it's a very different context, and it's really important and helpful to hear those nuances. And then here, I'm in Oakland, Ohlone Territory. And at the same time, even though we are, can vote and we have these things, at the same time, we are still stuck in this container. And so I think you're lifting up the importance of, I think, what does it mean to flip that on its head and imagine building social power, not in relationship to political structures. And then I'm curious for y'all, is there a leap or a vision you have for, breaking that, becoming fully independent, right? And not being a territory, which is a longer conversation. And if you did have any comments on that, maybe make one or two, and then we'll close off.
I think we're building an alternative future. Doesn't have to be independent or statehood. It's something that we can relate. We can be a republic and be a corrupted republic using fossil fuels and not a very unjust republic or a state as well. We are US citizens, but you can see we're Puerto Ricans. We're an island nation with our own identity. So what we want is for Puerto Ricans to be in a better position to make a final decision of the political destiny of Puerto Rico. If they choose to be a state or a republic, has to be in a position that Puerto Rico is somehow free from the colonial setup.
Right.
If we're being asked about our political destiny, people will be under these circumstances. It will not be a free decision. It will be in a state of necessity or security that people might think that we're better off with the US because they're afraid, because we're not
Right.
self-sufficient. We're so dependent.
The dependency and vulnerability mindset.
Yeah. So, but at the end, it will be up for the people to decide, not us.
Of
I
course.
want to be free. I like freedom. So for me, it's easy. Energy freedom, economical freedom, ecological responsibility. Um, and that is an agenda that I think is very horizontal,
Mm,
regardless of political belief.
thank you. Thank you so much. And again, I'm just like, as you navigate that, building that freedom and self-determination within that context, still putting a plug, what does it look like to protect community and social power from infiltration? That's my plug for that in the future.